One of the most interesting threads in Part 1 of Naruto was the rivalry between Neji and Rock Lee. Rock Lee represents youthful perseverance and the value of hard work. Neji embodies enviable talent and the unenviable things that come with it, such as the resentment of peers and being regarded as a fortunate person into whose lap talent just happened to fall. Imagine a series with the tension between these two and the inevitable clash between hard work and talent as the focus. Now imagine the main character of that series was Sasuke seeking revenge against Lee for the ass-whooping he gave him. This awkward extended metaphor is my way of introducing Teppu to people unlucky enough to have never read it. If you're the type of Naruto fan who's still upset that the talent versus hard work narrative was completely obliterated by ancient alien prophecies, you should definitely read Teppu. And if you still aren't convinced, I'm going to do this entire video without spoilers because I really want you to read it. I'm Zero, this is Kato, and today, let's talk about Teppu. This video is brought to you by Romeo, Juliet, and Juliet. It's a brand new comic over on Webtoons by Kato's very own Hoodie song. The story follows three young artists as they traverse the chaotic industry of modern entertainment. It's equal parts romance and a love letter to storytelling, heavily inspired by the likes of Bakuman and La La Land. The first handful of episodes are available to read now on Webtoon for free with new updates every Wednesday. Check out the link in the description, and make sure to subscribe on Webtoon to get a notification every time a new episode goes live. Now back to the video. Natsuo Ishido is not your average high school girl. She's very tall for her age, she always looks bored in class but she gets good grades, and she has a deep well of athletic talent. Even at a sports-oriented school, she's so talented that she's able to take a spot on the volleyball team from one of her upperclassmen without even putting much work in at practice. It's almost like she's blessed. Annoyingly, she seems bored by the blessing because her mind is elsewhere. Because of this, the only thing she finds difficult to deal with is the ire that her talent attracts. Well, maybe she finds other people difficult to deal with as well. She knows that because of her natural talents, others will view her as arrogant. She goes through life without caring whether or not other people will understand her because she's been misunderstood so often in life already that she just assumes they never will. But to outsiders, her occasional bemusement and her general refusal to explain herself look like she's just taking joy in mocking others who have to try harder than she does. It's not as though Natsuo is secretly a saint or anything. In reality, her personality is actually pretty sadistic and cruel. But often in the series, other characters view her as being malicious at points where she simply doesn't have malice. But there are certain characters on the other end of the spectrum who can draw out Natsuo's malice in its full force. Such as Yuzuko Mawatari. This shiny little cinnamon roll with big eyebrows just loves martial arts and exercise. Like Natsuo, she kinda rubs people the wrong way for similar but distinct reasons. This includes Natsuo herself, who pretty much takes one look at Yuzuko and decides that she wants to beat her up. Characters like this in Rock Lee tend to have less well-defined goals, often reflecting the goals of those close to them. In many cases, their goal is simply to prove they can stand among the strongest through the value of their effort. And they pursue those goals with blindingly earnest openness. In Yuzuko's first appearance, she's simultaneously familiar and mysterious. That's one of the benefits of taking shonen archetypes and putting them in unusual situations. Why is this girl recruiting people so desperately? Is she actually strong? These are the questions you ask when you see her acting completely earnestly, trying to share something she loves with new people. And it's definitely the type of question that socially stunted Natsuo asks, even if she's looking at a real person. So of course, Natsuo being the vicious little monster she is, this encounter leads to a fight. Unfortunately, their first little bout gets interrupted, but unlike in Naruto, a rematch is rescheduled pretty soon. To return to the metaphor from the intro, this is when Rock Lee and Sasuke fight for the first time. It's where the genius tastes defeat and learns the value of hard work. And Natsuo does learn something about fighting that day. You can't kick if you're getting slammed onto your back. It's clear from her strength, her speed, and most of all her technique that Yuzuko is a paragon of hard work. She must have dedicated most of her young life to martial arts already. So of course she's better than Natsuo. But this is no comfort. The idea that someone her age could be so strong suggests that she hasn't used her time wisely. After the fight, Natsuo laments that her body isn't in top condition for fighting, and decides to get back into shape and get strong enough to defeat the girl whose smile pissed her off. And the bloodshed begins. As Natsuo goes around causing trouble, Yuzuko obliviously smiles at her and encourages her. In Teppu, talented fighters are those who embrace and nurture their bad personalities at a young age. So Yuzuko, having seen Natsuo's interest in fighting and her skill in karate, believes she's found a kindred spirit. Much like meeting someone with the same hobby, but I think Yuzuko suspects there's a deeper connection there. Of course every Rock Lee has their Neji, every Krillin has their Goku, Every Leorio has their Kurapika. Enter Rinji Koreiro. Rinji is the fighting genius who stays one step ahead of the hardworking knucklehead. She's the nurtured heir of a legendary fighter, blessed with good genes and an ideal environment for getting stronger. Natsuo reminds Yuzuko of Rinji because they're both proficient and intelligent strikers, and because Rinji is her best friend. Is it Ringi? Rinji? People will complain either way. Maybe Yuzuko can tell that Natsuo is also the talented type like Rinji, perhaps due to her openly bored demeanor. Forgive me for leaning back on the metaphor, but in many ways it's like looking at Sasuke through Lee's eyes and comparing him to Neji. They're both somewhat impulsive, gloomy geniuses. It's clear there's some responsibility hanging over their heads, whether internally or externally imposed, and their skills never seem to be enough for them, however impressive. It isn't until Natsuo sees Rinji's unrestrained power that she fully understands the gap between her and her target. And yet, even in the face of experience and ability that far outclasses her own, Natsuo doesn't buckle. Frankly, she wouldn't know how to recognize if something looked impossible because she's never encountered a challenge that she couldn't complete. But either way, she sticks to her pledge to knock the smirk right off that girl's eyebrows. And as you would expect, Natsuo makes staggeringly quick progress towards that goal. She does have a background in combat sports, but it's still surprising how fast she catches on to grapple techniques. Not that it'll do her any good against a top-notch grappling expert like Yuzuko, but it'll give her an edge in avoiding that position. And when this grappling repertoire is combined with her reliable skills standing up, Natsuo becomes a frightening force. Once characters like this start to see results, it tends to be met with measured excitement. They feel reassured by their new strength, but on the other hand they have the nagging feeling that their achievements are hollow. It's not uncommon to see them take pretty drastic measures to prove themselves. The way this manifests for Natsuo in particular is very interesting to witness, but I won't say more for the sake of not coloring expectations. Although Natsuo feels confident in her abilities, she's also realistic enough to know that she has a long way to go before she actually catches up to the duo from Brazil. After all, it's not like they're not going to be getting stronger as well. Let's talk about Yuzuko's MMA club. It's comprised of 3 people, because everyone who shows up to join just leaves after they get their ass kicked, either by the practice or literally. Meika, the 3rd but technically 2nd member of the club, says Yuzuko is different from Rinji somehow, but she can't put her finger on it. In terms of personality, their dynamic is more Gon and Killua than Lee and Neji. Their behavior is generally very similar, with subtle differences, like that of 2 kids who are good friends. Neither of them are very braggadocious, and they act friendly towards new people. Rinji is the more extroverted of the 2, which is saying something. She's more outspoken and explorative, and doesn't mind imposing or butting in when she shouldn't be. Yuzuko is a bit calmer and generally more reserved and polite. At first glance, she would seem like the kinder of the 2. It takes a while to understand what it is about Yuzuko that rubs people the wrong way. She's open, honest, friendly. She doesn't seem like she's doing anything wrong, and she clearly doesn't mean to hurt anyone. Yet I suspect that Meika was talking about a deeper difference, one that lies in their motivations. Of course, the backstory of both of these characters does get explored in the narrative, and it confirmed that Rinji was the talented one and Yuzuko was always working hard to get better. But the question remained, why does she keep coming back? She comes back because it's fun. It's fun to get stronger, it's fun to fight, it's fun to win. It's the kind of simple and pure answer that you'd expect. And this purity is precisely the problem. Because of it, she doesn't stop to question what she's doing. Yuzuko doesn't understand that fighting is cruel, or she doesn't care that it is. She only views it as fun. Yuzuko's fight is an art form. She has no bad intentions, and yet she does more emotional damage to other fighters in the series than even Natsuo. She has something to prove to the world and to herself, and won't let something like that stand in her way, particularly when she's facing the same disappointment as her enemies. Perhaps greater disappointment. Yuzuko's cruelness is in the absence of kindness. Yuzuko thought Natsuo was someone like her, even more so than Rinji is like her. They both like fighting, they both bothered normal people just by being themselves. She thought she saw someone else who had put a lot of work into becoming strong, wanted to fight strong people, and all the other shonen protagonist stuff. But Natsuo enjoys the cruelty, maybe more than the art. Natsuo hasn't worked hard, she's just talented. But she will work hard now, to beat the contented smile off of the face of someone she envies. And if she finds that MMA is actually exciting along the way, well, that won't be so bad either. What the tortured genius archetype character is really looking for is not power, but fulfillment. They mistakenly pursue power in place of it. They believe that if they can achieve any goal they set in front of themselves, they can run away from the past, or in some cases, towards it. Natsuo must be smarter than most because she realizes this and orchestrates a scene where her pursuit of power begets the fulfillment she could previously only imagine. And that's why Natsuo ranked very highly on my list of favorite characters. While her story, Teppu, is a brilliant addition to our understanding of characters like Natsuo, the character herself stands out as uniquely brilliant in an archetype populated with genius fighters. And that is why Teppu needs an anime. Imagine how cool and spectacular it would be to see Natsuo's fights in motion. All I can say is that I definitely want to see her fight again. This was an interesting video, and one I'm very glad for the opportunity to make. I have a lot more to say about Teppu and how it plays on common themes and things like battle shonen, high school, femininity. If you guys are somehow really eager for more Teppu content, I am ready to supply it. Shout out to Super Eyepatch Wolf for making this manga series temporarily relevant and giving me an excuse to talk about it. Go check out his video if you haven't already. Thank you all for listening to my dumb rants. Subscribe for more.